All right, well, good afternoon, everyone. We are going to start. Today, we have a webinar on how to prepare for the virtual career fair that we have coming up. This year, as you know, we have moved all our events to virtual, which includes our Career Expo, which is our biggest event of the semester. That is when we have multiple employers come to meet with you, talk with you about their jobs, their positions, and hopefully leads to an interview or that job that you are seeking. So this year we are going to be doing all of that, but virtually. So hopefully you've received all the messages we've been sending out that talk about how to sign up, and we'll even go over that today as well so that we can answer your questions and make sure everyone is ready. And then we're going to also talk about, since this is a virtual environment, what will be different, how you can prepare, and what to expect. So let's jump right in and go over what exactly does a virtual career offer. And we want to go over this because just like an in-person fair, there's different ideas and thoughts of what is the expectation and what do I get out of this fair. And first and foremost, for both types of fairs, this is a place to network with recruiters and with companies so that you can learn about them, know what their positions are, talk with them about your questions, particularly hiring questions, and that goes across the board for both types of fairs. Beware though, with a virtual setting now, because obviously we know COVID-19 has had such an impact on the job market, employers who are coming to a virtual fair usually have a high need to hire right now. If they didn't want to hire right now, they usually would not be attending these types of events because they would not need to. So if they're attending, it means they're very motivated to hire, which is good for you as job seekers. So depending on the employer, there could be some different outcomes you could get from this virtual fair. The first one being is you might be referred for a job application. So they might talk with you and tell you, okay, we have these openings. This is what I recommend and what I would like you to apply for based on your resume and based on what we talked about. So they will tell you to go apply for a specific position or multiple positions depending on what they have. Secondly, they might be pre-screening the applicants. So you might have already applied with them or they're wanting you to apply. And now this is their pre-screening to get you through the first round of applicants to say, okay, yes, this applicant was great at the fair. Let's schedule them for an interview. And the goal here is always view a fair as a pre-screening because this is where you're going to leave a good impression for the recruiter to say, yes, I've talked with that applicant, they presented themselves well, they would be a good fit for our company. And that's what you're trying to achieve here, is to show I could be a good fit for them. Now, lastly, being this is virtual, we have heard a few companies already tell us that they are planning on doing interviews right on the spot at this virtual fair. So beware, not all employers will do this, but there are some. So go into it knowing I might be interviewed and be on your best, behavior and able to answer questions for employers, but also don't go into it expecting that they will give you an interview because each employer is different and each will set up their own format of when they meet with you and what the expectations are. So you can ask them, and again, very politely, of what positions they have open, what jobs they need filled right away, and that's how you will lead into where is this meeting going to go. So moving on with that, if you're wondering, well, what exactly are these meetings? How long are these meetings? What does it look like? So for our particular virtual fair, they are going to be 10-minute video sessions. So yes, you will be using your webcam, and you will meet with the recruiter and be able to talk with them back and forth using your mic. So this is important. You should try to make sure before the event that you have a camera and mic all set up and use them, because we've had students say, well, can I just talk to them and not show my face? And that, just so you know, I would not recommend. I would only do that if there was a real technical problem or a reason why you absolutely could not get your webcam to work. And the reason being is an employer wants to see your face. They want to have a conversation with you. And if they're talking to a dark screen, it's not the same interaction. And they want to see that you're confident. So they either are going to assume, yes, your technology didn't work, which again, they might think, well, if they can't get their technology to work now, what other technical issues may they have dealing with our technology if we hired them? Two, they might think they don't want to show their face for some reason, and they could be lack of confidence, whatever the reason is, they could assume that about you as well. So you don't want those two assumptions made of you. So be prepared that this is going to be a video meeting to talk with the recruiter. And then just also be aware it does need, your schedule needs to be done ahead of time because this is virtual. You can't, unfortunately, like an in-person fair, you can't just show up to a booth and drop in. You have to have a time, and that schedule is going to close an hour before. So an hour before the event, you can't just decide, okay, well, it's the middle of the event, maybe I'll see who's available. No, all of the schedule will be closed. So your job right now is to make sure you're signed up. And the farther in advance, the more choice you get. So I would recommend everyone go today and look to see what's available so you get your choice, because as time slots get taken, there'll be less for you to choose from. So you will need to log into Career Fair Plus. That is the platform that we are using for our virtual fair. You could download their app or you could use their website, and you're going to then click on Florida Institute of Technology. Make sure you're selecting yourself as a student. You'll then be able to see our fair where it says Florida Tech Fall 2020. And once you have seen our name, it's going to ask you to create an account. From there, you'll be able to see all the virtual time slots and what you can sign up for. Beware, you must use your my.fit email. If you do not use that, you risk being denied entry into the fair, because again, we need to verify your students here with our school, and the way you're going to do that is through your email. Once you have made that account, you can upload your resume, and the great news is you can upload multiple resumes to your profile. So it's to your advantage to make sure your profile is completely full and that you have added the resumes necessary for each employer that you're targeting. And yes, you are definitely able to make separate targeted resumes per employer, so that way you can best represent yourself for a particular company. Beware though, employers do have the ability to cancel your appointment. So for instance, if they see that you've made tons and tons of appointments, or you're trying to meet with separate people and they don't have the resources or representatives to meet with you that many times, they reserve the right to cancel your appointment. So just beware to check your schedule beforehand, and particularly the day of, so that you know where you're supposed to be and who you're supposed to meet with, and that will be in the Career Fair Plus account that you have created. As far as those resumes, I have mentioned you can upload multiple. So if you're not familiar with resume formatting, or you have not had your resume reviewed, I highly recommend you do that with our office. We have samples on our website, but the basics of a resume are listed right here. These are the basic sections that recruiters typically are wanting to see. If you would like to tailor these sections and tailor your experiences to that employer, I highly recommend you do so. But again, excuse me, you should have it reviewed so that it is the best representation of yourself that you can put on paper. You want to make sure it is perfect to help you land that job. As far as preparing now for the fair, so we've gone over the logistics, what the event will be, preparation. So some students may think, great, it's a virtual fair, I can roll out of bed and I won't need to do very much at all to prepare. Wrong, okay? This is actually going to be more preparation than you would actually need for an in-person fair. And the reason being is all this technology needs to be set up in advance. So you had your account set up in advance, you need to have your resumes loaded in advance. Something I really want to point out here, a lot of you guys spend a great amount of time making sure your resume looks great, and I've seen some really amazing resumes, and then you don't name your file very well. I've seen really bad grammar issues in your file names. I've seen things that don't make sense. I've seen things just resume. You might have just named it resume, or something that not even resume, and I don't even know why you've named that file that. So beware. When you upload your resume to the account in Career Fair Plus, the employer sees the file name, and they're going to download that file, and they get to see and keep all of that so they can contact you. So if you are going to do multiple resumes, like I suggested, I recommend you name your file, your initials, your last name, something with your name in it, then the company, and then resume. That way it's very clear which employer that resume is for. So in my case, if my first initial is K Ryan, and then I put the company, and resume. So some format like that, making sure you check for grammar, make sure it's all right. So you can have multiple files with multiple names lined up in your account, just like that. Secondly, we talked about already how you should be testing your sound, your camera, all of that in advance. I hope by this point in the semester, most of you have had that opportunity in your classes or elsewhere to already try out virtual platforms so that you know that you have a device that you can count on. But just in case, especially the day of, I would check just to make sure everything's configured the way it should be. You can check those settings in your own device, usually under sound and mic, and as well as your camera. You also want to make sure before that day that your background and your lighting is good. So that does take a little bit of prep on your part to find a space that has a professional background. It doesn't need to be anything crazy. It could just be a blank wall, but it should be something professional. We'll go over what that means next. But also make sure you follow all the instructions. So when you sign up for that account and you see your schedule and what you've done, you need to follow everything to connect to those meetings, so make sure you follow every instruction. And of course, beforehand, you always should be researching employers. So this gives you the advantage of, you know exactly who you're meeting with that day because you've made a schedule. So everyone you've made an appointment with, you have the list already made for you who you need to research. On the day of, I'm recommending 3 to 5 minutes early for your appointment. So traditionally, we would say, up to 10 minutes early. Being that this is a virtual environment, we don't want you to get lost in a queue somewhere. We know that things can happen, and a lot of times these recruiters are meeting in rooms where they are already with somebody and they could see your name lining up, and if it's too far in advance, you don't want them to forget about you or get lost. So you generally, rule of thumb, 3 to 5 minutes early is a good time period, even if you're right on the dot. Now with virtual appointments, you're there, that's fine, but 3 to 5 gives you enough time in case you do have any glitches or anything comes up. You want to make sure you are there and present. Being late, even a minute late, not good. You want to make a good impression on an employer, so make sure that you are there before the appointment starts. And of course, dressing professionally, being groomed and attentive. Many people think, again, I can just roll out of bed because it's virtual, no one will ever know. I can tell you, they will know. I have had virtual meetings with students where I can tell their eyes look like they just opened for the first time that day. And I can tell that they look like they just woke up. And if an employer can tell that, that does not look good, because it really gives the impression that you did not prepare or think this was important enough to get ready well in advance. So make sure that you are ready and giving your full attention during that meeting to the employer. So moving on to camera setup. So this is something that is unique to a virtual fair. You need to have a setup that shows off your best self. So the way that you can do this, hopefully, again, you guys have had some practice, getting all this ready while you meet with the students and professors and things you've been doing in the past. But I'm pointing all this out because I have seen many students who don't realize still some of the mistakes that you can make. So first off, camera should be level. So I have the camera right now here level with my face, and I am using a laptop, but my laptop is propped up higher so that the camera is level with me. There's a real problem with laptops and putting them down on a table, and people then open that laptop to kind of angle the camera so that it gets most of their head, and what you end up doing is getting the nose shot and the ceiling shot, and that is not the greatest angle. So do not angle the camera up to the ceiling. You want it to kind of be level right here. So we're not getting nose, we're not getting forehead, we're right here. You also want to make sure you have adequate lighting. So typically an overhead light, if you have one on the ceiling, sometimes that's okay, but you have to beware. For instance, in the first example, if you have a window behind you, that's considered backlighting because it's behind you. That basically shines all the light behind you, making everything in front really dark, which is what's happening to the first example. So you actually want to have adequate lighting in front of your face. So if it's a desk lamp or positioning the window so that the window was in front of you, that would be better. So that way you are lit up and make sure that you are seen. And testing that beforehand is important because you might not have realized that time of day or where you were sitting might have been okay last time. but for your session or your scheduled meeting time, it might not be. So make sure that you have good lighting. Clean background. So the second example gives an example of someone who decided to put their own background on. It's a fun video game. And you know what, maybe if she was going for a video gamer job, that might be something that would be considered fun and okay. But for the standard meeting with a company, no, you would not have anything busy behind you. So that includes really busy backgrounds like video games, things like that. It would include wallpaper that's really, you know, crazy. It would also include any clutter. So if you're in your house or somewhere, make sure it's clean behind you. Get everything out of the way. If you're really unsure, the last example with the check mark is a great one that shows just put a blank wall behind you. You know, find a spot in your house or somewhere at school that just has a nice blank backdrop, and that is a great way to be safe, to be sure, of course, if there's a wall behind you, you also ensure no one's going to walk behind you, because that last example also shows next to him that there's a bad example of you do not want people around you, so make sure you pick a quiet environment. So if you do have family members, kids, anything else going on in your house, pick a room where you can close the door and no one is going to come in. Having you know, someone behind your shoulder looking at the recruiter is a really bad way to make an impression, and you do not want that. Again, make this professional. Show that you took the time to show that employer that this time is for you only, and I have no distractions going on around me. So be very careful with that. And they understand, you know, this is virtual. They understand you might be in your home or your dorm. That's okay as long as you show off everything's clean behind you. So beware, don't be sitting on your bed. Try to get a desk or a chair or something. Again, you want to show, I didn't just wake up, and sitting in your bed does give that impression. Also beware, don't just sit in your car. I've had quite a few students actually show up to events sitting in their car. You might be, maybe you're between work or you're doing something. Again, it makes it look like they're the second priority to you, and whatever you're doing in your car or wherever you're going, it makes it look like that's the first priority. You should not be multitasking when you're meeting with employers. You should not be scrolling the internet or doing something else. You should not be eating. You should not be drinking. The only exception I would give is if you have some water. You can keep some water by you to clear your throat if you need it. But other than that, you should not have anything else going on. It should just be you and that recruiter talking. So as far as dress, you might think, okay, I'm on camera. You know, how important really is dress? Do I really have to get dressed up? What if I just put a nice top on? They're not going to see my bottom half, right? Well, you do need to dress professionally for a virtual fair, okay? And I recommend you do it head to toe. The reason being is you never know when accidentally that laptop, you know, closes or opens or something else happens, a glitch, and you have to stand up. And now you're stuck in a really bad position because you didn't get yourself ready. So make sure you dress professionally head to toe. And the minimum is business casual. So here we have some examples of what business casual means. It is typically a collared button-down shirt, or it could be a nice blouse, slacks, and that is business casual, okay? If you want to show the recruiter though, I really want this job, I really want to impress this recruiter, throwing a suit jacket on is really going to help, because again, yes, they only see your top half, so it's really not that hard to put a suit jacket on top. Show that you took the time to get ready for this because you really want this job or you really value this company. So I do recommend you go above the minimum if you're really looking to get hired. As far as first impressions and grooming, again, you might think it's on camera. They won't notice that much about me. Okay, it's all about your face, everything here. So being clean and being groomed is important. And depending on the company, everyone has different ideas about what is considered professional or not. And so I kind of have a spectrum here, a continuum of very traditional, you know, some companies stick very traditional, and then we have some alternative looks going on here. And I can tell you the safest bet always is going to be traditional. You don't know who you're meeting with, you don't know, you know, what that recruiter's background is and what their thoughts are of professionalism. So staying traditional will always be the safest bet. And for women, that usually it means having your hair clean and pulled back, For men, it means being cleanly shaven and typically short hair. So that is the safest bet. As we move over though, and as traditions have changed over the years, I would say the second photos are both very safe. They both look clean, they both look groomed, and even though the gentleman has a very small amount of facial hair, it's groomed and clean. Most employers probably won't have a problem with that. Again, you never know. You could have a very traditional recruiter who thinks clean shaven is absolutely necessary for an interview. And there are still some out there who believe that. Same with women's hair. Women's hair is very subjective. Like I said, some would still consider pulled back and very clean and sleek is the most professional. And others would say, you know what? There are so many different types of women's hair, you know, so many different textures that there's many ways that could be professional. So the bottom line is it needs to be clean and look groomed. As we get towards the right side where we're seeing some colors, right? We're seeing some dye, and especially with women, if you're wearing any unnatural makeup colors, that would be considered very alternative. It is not considered traditional. And again, you might think, well, this is me, this is who I am, I'm expressing myself. And you're right, for some alternative companies, that probably would be just fine. But remember, you're dealing with first impressions. They make split-second judgments off of you. And usually, especially if you're meeting for 10 minutes, they only have 10 minutes to make a judgment about you and who do they think is going to be the better candidate. And sadly, people could make judgments about, well, if they change their hair color all this much, maybe they'll change their job all the time too. And even though that could be an unfair assumption, people still do it. So beware, if this job is very important to you, start off safe always when you're meeting or interviewing. And then when you get to know the company culture, you'll get to know, you know, what is considered okay or not in that environment. And two other things that I want to point out here too that kind of, again, can be very polarizing in a workplace is piercings and tattoos, and those as well. Again, traditional would be neither to both. For women, having a pierced ear is considered fine, but beyond that, no facial piercings. Having a large piercing, for instance, an oversized piercing like you see there, is considered more alternative. So those are things you might take out for an interview, or you might not show, because again, you need to get to know the people and the culture before you let them make split-second judgments about you when they don't know you yet. So that's something to keep in mind. Obviously, when you're in a virtual environment, your ability to make a good impression and show them who you are can be harder, okay? You're not in person, you get to just see, you know, your face and that's it, so it can be hard. So some tips I will give to make a good impression is to show off in the very first minute something that is positive or enthusiastic about yourself or the company, and we gave some examples here. Obviously, we know this is a time period that's unique in the world, that we're going through a pandemic. So even something as small as saying, you know, I'm so glad that we could meet virtually even during all this time, you know, that humanizes you. It shows off that you, you know, have some personality while still being appropriate to the time that we're in. Same thing with the bottom statement. If you want to show that you're enthusiastic about this company, you're so excited to meet this recruiter because you have, and then you would fill in, is it the company? Is it a project? Is it the field? What is it about them that makes you excited, that you really are interested in? Right off the bat, that can really open them up to have a good impression of you. And then of course, some other things you can do while you're on camera is if you are saying hello, you can have a quick hi. That makes you, again, humanizes you on camera to give you a quick hi. Again, you'll notice we said single wave, like one. You're not gonna stay up here all the time and have my hands kind of going back and forth here. That's too much. You know, culturally, there's other ways that you could say hello to someone. Some people do nods, some people do different ways, and just showing off that you're saying hello or goodbye on camera is still possible. Smiling helps. You know, remember, I know when you're nervous, that's really hard, especially for students. I notice when they're nervous, they tend to look away. And if you have a problem with that, you might want to practice doing some like FaceTime or other types of recordings where you practice looking in the camera if that's kind of hard for you to do a conversation with someone on video. Practice having good eye contact, good posture. You're not to the side of the camera. You're not leaning back too far. Leaning in a little bit actually shows interest. So you don't want to have my face so close to the camera that that's a little jarring, right? But if you're leaning in a little bit, or you're showing that you have your arm up and you're really looking close, that actually really shows, kind of like we have this picture of this female here showing she's actually leaning a little bit in with her shoulder, showing I'm really interested in you. I'm really listening to you is what that says. So you could still have that posture on camera to show that I'm really paying attention, I'm present here. And then of course, always keep your comments positive. And that goes whether you're in person or virtual, but it's a reminder I want to give students, because I know this is a hard, again, a hard semester we're going through with COVID. And it might be really easy to say, wow, I wish we could just meet in person and not have to deal with this camera, or I wish, this is so hard, or I can't believe, we have to go through, whatever those comments are. They might be valid and real, but this is not the time to vent. This is not the time to gripe and complain. This is the time to focus on a job and a company. And you want to show I'm resilient, I'm flexible, I can be hired by you in a pandemic and be great at that job. So being negative is not going to give that message. So you want to really show, okay, yes, this is a hard semester, but I am so excited that I'm still able to complete my classes and I can apply for jobs with companies like yours. Please tell me about, and then you can go into either your elevator pitch where you talk about yourself, or ask them some questions and talk about their jobs and their company. Lastly, of course, it goes without saying, I would hope that you should speak clearly and confidently. Again, that goes in person and virtual, but on a camera, some things to keep note of is your sound. So if your mic has poor quality, you might have to speak up a little. You don't want to yell at them, but you might have to speak up a little bit. And some people, again, when you're nervous, you might be a little more soft-spoken. So again, practice makes perfect. Practice talking to a camera. Watch yourself, record yourself and watch yourself, so oh, I could improve in that area, or I could not hear myself. So you will know what you sound like. Also make sure that you're not talking really, really, really fast. That shows that you might be a little nervous as well. And you don't want to talk too slow. So again, recording yourself can help, so you know that you have a good cadence and that you look confident and you're able to do that through a camera. So I just mentioned an elevator pitch, and if you're wondering what is an elevator pitch, it's basically a short little summary of who you are that you are going to pitch to that employer, and they call it the elevator pitch because it should be about the length of an elevator ride. So if you were going to go talk to an executive on an elevator, usually it's about 30 seconds. So as a student, you might think, well, I have nothing to talk about. I'm just a student. Well, you do. You can talk about what you're doing here at Florida Tech, what you're hoping to do in the future. So here's a little example where you can kind of use this as a starting point. Feel free to make it your own, but you should be able to tell them immediately without them even having to ask you, okay, what is your major? What is your school year? And then you can go into what are your strengths? What's your background? If you don't have a lot of experience right now, talk about your courses. What are your projects? What are you doing right now? What are you learning? Those are all things that employers like to hear. And then you can go into what your goals are, what you're hoping to achieve. And for some of you, if you're saying, well, I'm still figuring out my goals, that's okay. Talk about what you're exploring. Right now, I'm exploring my career paths of whether I should go down, software or electrical engineering, or talk about what you're really, weighing in on. As long as it's relevant to the company, then it's okay. You don't want to bring up goals that have nothing to do or would not benefit the company. Okay, this is the time to talk about, career and skills that are relevant to them. If you're still wondering what that could look like, we have some real life examples here. For instance, the first one talking about they're a sophomore, they tell me their major is computer science, and they tell me right off the bat some skills they have experience with, which that's always great if you can start with some skills. They then talk about the courses they took on those subjects. They talk about that they've had a part-time job here on campus working help desk. They also talk about some trainings they've had, and then they say they're looking for a position in CIS and they want to grow their skills. So again, a very nice synopsis, not very long. It's a great way to introduce yourself. And below we have a business example as well. So if you still need some practice with that or you don't know what to say, again, make an appointment with us and we can talk with you to help you practice that before the expo. Some common pitfalls I want to go over. So this is something that I see with students at our expos. Employers and recruiters have told us that this is some of the things that students have said to them that are not impressive. So here are some ideas and ways you could fix some of these issues. So like I said, the most common one of the student is saying, well, I really, I don't have experience. Well, this is, again, not a place to talk about what you don't have. This is a place to talk about, again, all the positive aspects of yourself. So as a student, you should easily be able to say what your course experience is. Tell them what your course experience is and what you're hoping to grow in or what your next steps are so that you can get experience. So for instance, you're going to start an independent project or you're going to do a new practicum or a course or whatever it is. Those are things you can talk about. If you say to them, I really don't know what I want to do, okay, that again tells an employer they probably don't know if they want to apply to this company and why am I talking to them, okay? So that's not something you would want to say. You should be focusing more on, okay, if you really are not sure, talk about it in a professional light of, I'm exploring my options, tell me about a position and be specific. This is obviously generic because we don't know what company you're targeting, but you could ask them what a day looks like in their company or what does a day look like for a software engineer? Can you explain to me some projects that I would work on? Okay, that's a way that you can have them give you some information, learn a little bit, and again, still open the door for possibilities with you. The other way of saying it probably closes the door. Below that, we also have people talking about their worries. We already talked about why you would not want to be saying negative comments. And so a better way to say that would be, how is your company keeping workers safe during this time? Okay, that shows that you're thinking about safety and you're asking in a professional light. If you ask or tell a company, I only want to work virtually. Well, you know what, there are companies who are doing that and they're doing that right now, but putting a demand out when you first meet someone is not a good idea. Ask them open-ended questions. The open-ended question is, like I just said, how do you keep your workers safe? Are you offering virtual work to your workers based on what's happening with the pandemic right now? That's a way to openly ask them. That question's a little polite than asking them or demanding that, hey, this is all I have, this is all I'll do. And most likely they're gonna say, well, they're really not flexible, or they already aren't able to adapt to a new world. And so they might, again, decide that you're not the candidate they're looking for. As far as needing a job, we understand this is a tough job market. We understand a lot of people really need work, and recruiters know that too. You don't need to tell them that. You want to show them professionally why this is important. So a professional way to say that you need a job right now is to say, I'm really eager to work and I can start immediately. That's the way you would tell them that you're ready, because that's a plus. To a recruiter, if you can start immediately, that's a great plus for them. So always say things in a way that would benefit them and show that, hey, I have something to offer, which is starting immediately, which is great. As far as international students, this is a common one in internationals. If you are not educated on what your visa status is or how should you talk to an employer, I highly recommend you make an appointment with us and we can go over that with you of how you can market yourself. But you should not be expecting an employer to tell you what you need to do. You should know that, and you should be able to market and sell yourself to the employer who may not know about what OPT or CPT is. A lot of employers don't. So it's on you to be able to tell them, you know what, I have CPT and OPT, so your company doesn't need to sponsor me while I'm in school and for a couple of years after school. And some companies don't know that, and that's a great selling point. So being able to market yourself and telling them that is great. You still can be open and honest that, you're wondering, have you hired internationals before? Have you sponsored internationals? That's okay to ask them that politely, but you want to be able to market and sell it so that they know, okay, I don't need to worry while you're in school about visas and all those issues, because some companies that could be intimidating too. As far as the last one, we have heard several companies tell us that students come straight out and let them know they were told to go to the fair because their professor told them to, or because their parent told them to, or because they were required for a class assignment. That is a terrible way to present yourself to a recruiter, because while this fair, it may not matter to you, you know what, when you need an internship next semester or you're graduating next year, it is going to matter, and they do remember students who present themselves that way. So you want to always present yourself in the best light, and if you are coming here just because you wanted to find out what is a fair and you were told you needed to, present it in a way to show that you're learning and that you're eager to learn and you're there for a reason. Because if you tell a recruiter you don't even want to be there, or you don't know what you're doing there, they're closed. They already decided, move on. Why did you even come? And so beware of your words and how you say them. A better way to say it would be, I'm learning about different companies and industries right now while I'm studying. Please tell me about your company and what would I need to know as a job seeker. You could ask them, is there any advice that you have for a new entry-level job seeker? There's multiple ways you could ask them nicely, basic questions without demeaning or telling them that their time isn't valuable and you're just doing this because you have to. So beware of how you present yourself. And one way you can present yourself well is researching. So like I said, if you know who you've made appointments with, you should research those employers, visit their website, see what's going on in their latest press releases. Some of them have news on their sites. You could see what their big projects are sometimes. LinkedIn is a great way to find out what's going on with the company. Most of them are very active on LinkedIn, so they'll tell you exactly what's going on, what are their latest needs, what are they hiring for. You can find out a lot through there. So I highly recommend, if you don't have a LinkedIn, you make one, make an account, start putting all your professional profile together and following companies there. And then of course, beforehand, this is great that once you've read those websites or you've seen the positions that you're interested in, you now have questions you can prepare. And it always impresses an employer if you've shown that you know their company, you've prepared, you've read about the positions they offer, and now they don't have to answer the same generic question over and over and over. You can actually ask them something very specific and say, I see that you've posted this job 2 weeks ago. I'd like to know, based on your hiring and recruiting trends, do you typically leave jobs open for more than 2 weeks? If I applied now, would I still be considered? Or how does your hiring process look? And they can then go and describe that. So when you tell about a specific position, they're happy to look at that. And they can tell you, some of them will say, yeah, we close positions after this long. Some of them are going to tell you, well, that's a high need position. So yes, if I have your resume now, I can push you in that pool or in that application. So always be prepared to talk about jobs and anything that you've learned about their company with them. This is the time to get your questions answered. Too often I hear seniors and alumni say, I've sent my resume out to so many places, I've done so many applications and I haven't heard back from any of them. Well, this is your time before you get to that stage to know what you need to do so that doesn't happen to you, okay? Some companies are very specific about when they post their jobs. They're very specific about what instructions they use or skills or resume formats or things they like. So this is the questions that you can ask them now, so that when you do apply, that you're not, disregarded or not, don't get any return emails or messages because perhaps you didn't meet their qualifications or whatever else that you could have found out at an event like this. As far as following up, it is very important to follow up. A lot of students don't take this last step. They come to the fair, they get the information they want, and they move on. Well, following up is a way that you can, again, maybe get an interview or be able to find out about a job that you wouldn't have otherwise known. And all you need to do is, of course, talk with them here at the fair. And the best idea, of course, would be to ask them when you're meeting, and particularly towards the end, is there a best way to follow up or connect with them? And usually recruiters will tell you either email or a LinkedIn. Usually they like to connect on LinkedIn is great. Sometimes they don't give out their contact information because they have a lot of students that reach out. Sometimes they do, and you won't know unless you ask, and that's a very polite way to ask them. And then after you've met, you can connect and follow them on LinkedIn is very common. And that's a great way to message them in case you didn't get their contact information or they said, I don't give out my email. That's fine, but LinkedIn is a very professional way that you can at least send them a thank you. And I'll talk about that next, how you could thank them. Sometimes you'll talk with a recruiter and you maybe were targeting a particular job and they straight out tell you, I only hire for this, major. The recruiter who hires for those majors is not here, or I'm not the person for that. So you could still follow up and ask them, am I able to contact that recruiter? And if so, what's the best way? Again, ask politely. That's a very nice way to ask. And of course, always follow instructions. So if they have told you, okay, after this meeting, go apply for job A, B, C, or whatever it is, you need to go and do exactly what they say. And that way, when you thank them or you follow up, you can tell them you've done what they told you to do, which is always, a good way to show that you get things done. So you would want to do exactly what they tell you. And then here is the example of a thank you. It is always a good idea after you've met someone or networked with a professional contact to thank them for providing whatever opportunity, or in this case, it would be a meeting. And 24 to 48 hours, like I said, if you don't have their email, LinkedIn is a very common way now where you can send this whole message through LinkedIn. If you are sending by email, this format works as well. But this is the format I want to point out for students. Be sure to always include a greeting to whoever that person is. So, hi, Mr. Smith, dear whoever, put their name. Those are greetings. You should have those in messages. You can then thank them for meeting with with you. Jog their memory. Okay, they're probably going to meet with quite a few people that day, and they probably meet with lots of people or see lots of messages every day. So you're going to jog their memory that you met them at our Career Expo. You're going to jog their memory about whatever you talked about. If there was a specific position, you would probably mention that. If there was a specific projects or things, mention it. And then, of course, you can end with if anything else is needed. You can ask them to reach out to you. Please let me know, whatever verbiage you'd like to include. That's a nice way to show you're willing to do whatever is needed. And then you can thank them. That's your salutation or your closing. And then you would always put your name and contact, okay? So if you're sending from your own email, you probably don't need to put your own email, but if you're sending through LinkedIn, I would put your email on it so that they could get back to you. If you're comfortable, and most recruiters, it would be a good thing to do is to put your phone number as well, because maybe there really was a great job or something opened up, and now they have your direct phone number if they want to schedule an interview. They don't have to search for your resume or search for anything. You made it very easy for them to contact you to do that. As we start wrapping up here, I do want to go over, being that this is a virtual fair, we do know technical problems can come up from time to time. We hope that this does not happen at the fair, but if it does, beware, you do need to stay calm. There's many examples of, for instance, you can't hear the recruiter, but they can hear you or they can see you. So if you are starting to flip out or you're starting to get frustrated, chances are they might be seeing that, and that's not the side that you want to show them. So if you can try to explain it through a chat box, that's the best way to go around it and say, I cannot see you, or you cannot hear me, or I'm trying to connect, whatever it is. Explain to them what the issue is. Hopefully you can figure it out, or they can walk you through whatever's going on. If though you absolutely cannot hear or see them, or there's something really wrong that cannot be fixed, use that chat box and tell them, you're having some technical difficulties. Can you meet with them another time, or if they're available, or if they'd like, because again, not everyone might, but some employers, it might be okay. You could say if they're okay with it, you're also available by phone, and then you would leave your phone number if that's something that they would like to do. And hopefully that does not happen at all, but again, we know that these things can happen, so prepare yourself to take that route. And then if for some reason there's a real outage, the whole platform is not working, you can't get in, you're locked out, you're whatever it is, contact us immediately, because we will be ready that day to get involved and help students if there are any issues. So the best way to get to us is by our email at career@fit.edu, and we'll respond to you very quickly that day to make sure that you guys are getting help. So after this fair, if you are needing more help, or even before the fair to get ready, we do have appointments. I already mentioned we do resume reviews. We help with searching and mock interviews as well, career assistance. And I really want to point out that this is one way to network and one way to meet employers. There are many others, and we want to make sure you're taking advantage of all our resources and services. So Jobs are being posted on Handshake and CareerShift. We also have Going Global as well, which is great for finding international jobs or for internationals who are looking for companies that sponsor. That's a great resource. We have these expos both in the fall and the spring. We do on-campus interviews for the employers that have requested them. In this case, they would be virtual campus interviews for this semester. We also have employer events and info sessions that are all virtual this semester, so you can meet employers through those events. We have webinars like these that are ongoing to help you with your career search. We have a co-op program and a hosted Panther externship program, so there's lots of ways to meet employers, and you should be active in all these avenues, or as many as you can, because you don't want to just count on just one event to land you the job, and we hope it does for a lot of our students. But if there's some more opportunities or you're not finding the exact match that you're looking for, we can help you through these other avenues to find you a good internship or job. And if you are needing our contact information, we have right here, this is our office. We have our phone number, our email. Be using Handshake. We house almost all of our resources within Handshake. And then we also have our website, which has a lot of information as well. So now that we have come to the end, I would like to open it up for any questions. So if you have any questions, you can use that chat box we have. We also have, if you'd like, I'll give you the ability to use your microphones if you would like to use your microphones to ask some questions. But I will give you just a couple minutes to see if any questions come in.
Hi, I have a question.
All right, I think I hear someone, but it's very low, so I need you to speak up a little bit.
Wait, can you hear me? Is it better now, or is it still kind of low?
It is a little bit low. I am going to see actually on my end if perhaps could be my volume. Go ahead.
I have a question as well. Is that better now?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. Since recruiters already have our resumes on the file from the app, could we still offer to like share our screen to show our resume and then talk briefly about certain points or just answer any questions that they may have?
Great, that's a great question. This is the first time that we're using this platform, so I cannot speak to whether screen share is available. If it does turn out to be available, it will be up to the individual employer. So some employers might think that's great. If you want to share a resume, a document, a portfolio, a LinkedIn, whatever it is, they might actually be happy to use it to share their job or whatever they'd like you to look at. But it really depends on the employer. So that's something you could ask politely if that technology is available to say, I do have my resume or my document or whatever else you'd like to show them on my device. If you'd like me to screen share at any time, please let me know. And that's kind of a nice way to say, you know, you have that ability if they're interested.
Thank you. And then there's a question in the chat, by the way.
All right, thank you. All right, so someone's saying their headset is the only microphone they have. Is it okay to use my headset when I meet with the employers? And that's a good question. So yes, one of the examples we had, it was kind of very subtle, but one of the students actually had white earbuds in and they had their headphones on, and that's fine. That was a really subtle headset. If you have a large, like, you know, like the gaming headsets, I think most employers would have no problem with that because this is a virtual meeting if you need to hear and that's what your device requires. I see no problem with it, just as long as, and I want to caution, there's nothing offensive or crazy about these headphones. If nothing's on it, they're just, you know, basic headphones that are colored or something, and that's fine. But there should be no problem with using headphones because several people have the same issue where they need to wear a headset. All right, so you're saying they're not gaming headsets, they aren't large enough, they're plain gray. Yes, totally fine. Mm-hmm. All right, so I'll wait to hear if there's any other questions. Like I said, feel free to use your mic or that chat box.
Thank you so much.
We had a suggestion from one of our students to tell everyone to wear pants, which is very true. And like I said, wear nice pants because again, they will see that pajama pant. You never know when catastrophe strikes, and Murphy's Law does happen. So, All right, and we do have our employer relations coordinator. She is putting in the chat box, so you have that again, the Career Plus link. So if you need to sign up for a session, make your account, load your resume, that is the link you would use. All right. If I don't see any other questions coming through, I think we are going to wrap it up here. I do appreciate everyone coming. We hope that you all make some sessions on the Career Fair Plus app. If you need any help, further assistance, please make an appointment with us. We'd be happy to help you. You guys all have a good, I gotta stop my screen. Good rest of your day. And we hope to see you at the fair. All right, bye-bye.